Well, my mother had a large family, and then my dad passed away when he was just turned 60, just right after his 60th birthday. And from that time on, she did travel quite a little bit with us. She would come out and maybe stay a week at a time, and sometimes longer. And one of her favorite things to do was take rides through the mountains. And then Bill's going to tell you about the big surprise trip that we took with her, where she didn't know where she was going. She just thought we were going for a little ride.
Yeah, it was in 1992, and her mother was 86 years old. She loved to come out here and, as Valeta said, take rides and sit out in the sunroom and just look at the mountains. And she would do that for hours and hours and hours. So we decided that we would go back and get her and bring her out, and for longer than a week. And we said, well, maybe 2 weeks, it may be a little longer, that's okay. And she said, sure. So we prearranged a trip for her. She had a first cousin and quite a few other relatives that she grew up with, and her first cousin was like a brother to her, and he lived in Nevada, Fernley, I think it was. So Valeta called out there and told them that we would bring her on a surprise trip out there and drop her off for a week. So we did that, and I remember when we left, and we had our grandkids with us too, Chanda and Jeremy, and then we were going to go on to San Francisco, which we did. So we were a long ways away, it was maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and she said, boy, it's sure going to be late when we get back tonight, because we are so far away. Well, we had family in Salt Lake City, so we had already made arrangements to stay there the night, and she still didn't know. And so we just told her, said, well, we came further than we thought we might, so we're just going to have to stay here because we can't get back tonight. So we did, and of course our grandkids didn't know either. They knew that we were going to drop her off, but they didn't know what else we were going to do. So anyway, we did drop her off, and they had arranged for a huge family reunion, because they had family in Nevada and in Idaho and in California, and they all came to Fernley, where her first cousin was. And so they had a great time. Then we went on to San Francisco, and I have something with a situation with our granddaughter Chanda that was pretty interesting. We got into San Francisco, and she said, there's something here that I would really like to see. Lombard Street, I'd like to see it. And I said, well, we'll just drive over there anyway. So we did, and we got there, and we were just looking at it, and she said, Granddad, I'd like to drive down this street. And I said, well, Chanda, I said, you just got your learning permit. You haven't, you don't need to have any experience at all. And she said, I can do it. And so we talked about it, and she says, Granddad, please let me drive down it. It would mean so much for me. So, what are you going to do? So we got her, she got under the wheel, and I was in the passenger seat, and I put the car down, and we had a Lincoln Town Car, which was probably one of the largest cars in the U.S. And so anyway, I put it down in low drive and checked the wheel all the time, kept my hands pretty close to it. But we drove down, and she did a super job down there, and she was so proud. Then we went on, and we had made arrangements to stay at the Circus in Reno that night. And we got in there, and there was quite a few cars in front of us to get into the hotel. So we just left it. We pulled the car off to the side and just left it and left them in there. Now she's 16 and Jeremy is 14. So we said, you know, just stay in the car and we'll go in and get registered and then we'll come back out and we'll park it. So we did that and we came back out. The car was gone. And I'm thinking, oh wow, you know, the car's gone and our grandkids are gone. And so I was really upset. And so I talked to the people there and they said, well, some young lady went ahead and drove that and came through and we checked it out and she took it in and parked it somewhere. So we went in and they stayed with the car until we found it. And I thought, boy, that was a good feeling when we saw them and the car, because you know, we didn't know, you know, what had happened, if someone had gotten in and taken off with it or anything. So I just remember that, and a couple things that happened like that were interesting.
The attendant had come over and said, this car cannot stay here, it has to be moved. She says, okay. She just hopped over the seat and moved it. Just like that. And I guess he really looked at her because she was not very big. She was pretty little. But she had no problem moving that car to a spot out of their road. But I thought that was pretty good thinking. Nowadays, I wouldn't think of doing something like that in this day and age. Back then, there was no problem, you know, because something like that just usually nothing happened. But that was real interesting. Reno was close to Fernley, and we stayed all night in Reno that night, and the next morning we got up and went out to pick her up, and she had such a marvelous time. And so that is one thing I was really glad we were able to do with her. She did live to be 90 years old, so that was nice. That even with that, she was really antsy about staying in hotels, so because we had to stay in one going out, we'd stay in one coming back. So, but she made it, and was so thankful that she got to do that. So, and we were too, and so many relatives that came made a real big effort to be there for her and to see her, because they hadn't seen her in years. So that was good.
We knew that she hadn't seen her first cousin and the rest of the relatives for years and years, because she couldn't go out, they didn't, and they never came back. And we knew that most likely that would be the last time that she would ever see any of them, and it was.
She didn't figure out where she was going until we were almost to Fernley. And she saw the word Fernley and she started crying. She knew that where we were headed, but she just broke down. She just, oh, Fernley, that's where we're going. And then she cried. She just was so happy. It was a happy cry, you know, of course. So I'm so glad that we had made that effort. So that was a real pleasant experience with my mother.